Hey, and welcome to YouTube. Welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. We are back with our predictions for this week, and yeah, got some interesting games, some FA Cup games, we've got some FA Trophy games. All very exciting if they can go ahead. Just looking outside, seeing a bit of the frost and snow. It's touch and go. But yeah, we'll start with tonight: West Ham United versus Nottingham Forest, which is pretty much confirmed to go ahead, isn't it? When you're at that level in the Premier League, you're almost definitely going to be having a game on. Interesting, both of these two teams, presumably in a relegation six-pointer, maybe. I would hesitate to say that at this moment in time, but I think it's about accurate. There's 4 points separating these two teams, 17th versus 18th. Forest on the verge of losing 5 in a row. If they lose against West Ham, you'd have to question whether Sean Dyche will remain at the club or whether he'd be sacked. I think you look at Marianakis, the owner, he does like pulling the trigger. He's a bit of a trigger-happy manager. So I wouldn't be surprised if West Ham win this one. Would Sean Dyche be off? But I think, alas, Nottingham Forest are going to win this one. 2-1. But yeah, I don't think either of these two sides are very good at the moment, and I'd rather Forest be relegated, but I realistically am seeing West Ham relegated more. Macclesfield versus Radcliffe in the National League North. Yeah, Radcliffe doing really well this season. 4 games unbeaten at the moment. They're, I think, well capable of reaching the top 3. I know they're 10 points gap, but if they continue on their form, just score a few more goals, and I think you could see themselves up there. They're a solid team at the moment, definitely worthy to be in the playoffs at the end of the season. Macclesfield, I don't think their heads are necessarily going to be in this game. They've got Palace on the weekend on TV. We might do a live watch along for that one. We'll have to see. But if they're 6 points off the playoffs, and it's just not really going the way of the Cheshire side at the moment. So I'm going to go Radcliffe to win this one. 3-2 if it goes ahead. Eastbourne Borough versus Horsham. Another one for tonight, which have got question marks over. With Eastbourne in the relegation zone. Horsham in the, or just outside the playoffs rather, on goal difference. Horsham haven't been on a great run of form, it must be admitted. 4 games now without a win. Compared to Eastbourne's a bit patchy form and they're in a relegation zone for a reason. Yeah, I do have to say, for me, Horsham do win this one. I think they edge it out 1-0. It won't be a comfortable win, but it's back to winning ways for in this Sussex derby to Horsham. AFC Bournemouth versus Spurs. We've got some Wednesday games. And Bournemouth versus Spurs, a very interesting one. Some people have slightly linked Areola to potentially go to Spurs. There's not much separating these two teams. 4 points, but only 2 positions. But yeah, Spurs in 13th. It's been disappointing of late for Spurs. It really has. And at Bournemouth home ground, I think Bournemouth could come out with a win in this one. 1-0 to the Cherries. A bit of a scrappy one, maybe, on the south coast. Brentford versus Sunderland. Brentford is 7th, Sunderland at 8th. Brentford are really flying at the moment. 5 games now unbeaten, 3 wins in that spell. 1 point off the playoffs, off the Europa League. 4 points off the Champions League. Really came out of nowhere, haven't they, at the moment? And we know Sunderland, they're a decent enough team. They've had 4 draws in a row now. Maybe it's going to be another draw for the Mackhams in this one. We'll go an entertaining 3-3 draw. I think both of these two teams are roughly equal at the moment. I suspect Brentford will finish above Sunderland. But yeah, Crystal Palace versus Aston Villa. Aston Villa had an interesting couple of weeks. They were really, really strong at one point and then lost 4-1 to Arsenal. And they did recover with a win against Chelsea. I think for me, a Champions League finish in about 4th place is where I realistically see Villa finishing this campaign, which is no issue at all. You're getting Champions League football at the end of the day. Palace are without a win now in the last 5, 1 draw to their name. have fallen a bit down table as a result, down to 14th. Oliver Glasner's mind is clearly elsewhere, and Man United have still yet to appoint a manager, and I suspect he does go to Manchester United, although they have said that they were going to wait to the end of the season, which Glasner's already said that he's out of contract at the end of the season and he's not planning on staying. I'm going to have to go with a Palace win, though. I think it is going to be needed. 3-0 to Palace. I know it seems unlikely, but there's a couple of shocking results that Villa have had this season. That's part of the thinking behind it. Everton versus Wolverhampton Wanderers. Where did that Wolves display come from? That last game against West Ham winning 3-0. Is this the most craziest form we're about to see? And somehow Wolves pull off the great escape. That really would be something, wouldn't it? But unfortunately for Wolves, I don't think that's going to happen. Everton are your typical mid-table team. And I think they do lay the Wolves to the slain. And they're going to win this one at the Hill Dickinson Stadium 4-0. Fulham versus Chelsea in a West London derby, which is a one-sided derby. I think Fulham take greater pleasure than Chelsea. And although Fulham are unbeaten in the last 5, they don't tend to do that well in this fixture. And Chelsea have just appointed Liam Rossini. Now, new manager bounce could potentially be quite good. I don't think the Maresca should have been sacked, by the way. It happened just after the stream ended last week. And I am going to go with Chelsea to win this one by 2-1. I really want Rossini to do well. He's a lovely bloke. I really liked him at Derby. He was a great assistant to Wayne Rooney, and I thought it was a great interim manager we had. It was just a shame that his football wasn't really conducive to League One. So he went off to Hull City, which is a bit more conducive to Championship. And I imagine it's quite good in the Premier League as well. Man City versus Brighton and Hove Albion. A couple of draws now for Man City, and I think maybe another one in this one. West Ham got back to winning ways Brighton got back to winning ways in their last game. And yeah, I think a draw in this one's going to be an even game. 2-2 will go. Burnley versus Manchester United. As we've already touched upon, Ruben Amorim has been sacked. Maybe a little bit harsh with Manchester United being 6th compared to where they were at large parts last season, completely wrong end of the table. It is understandably both him and Pochettino, Postecoglou. I know it began with a Po, were horrendous last season or relative clubs. So it was a little surprise to me to see Amorim also leave. It's got to be a Man United win, surely, against Burnley, who have only won 3 games all season. I think maybe they could get above West Ham, but that's about it. We're going to go 1-0 to Man United. Newcastle United versus Leeds United. 9th place Newcastle, back-to-back wins now, and I think beginning to hit their form a bit. They could definitely overtake their rivals, Sunderland. Leeds, an incredible amount of draws of late. It seems every single game is a draw at the moment in Yorkshire. So we're going to go with another draw in this one. We're going to go a 0-0 draw in this game to make it 6 draws in 7. Quite something. Arsenal versus Liverpool. First in the league is Arsenal, won 5 in a row now. Absolute top notch. Liverpool, well, they're beginning to run some form together themselves. Slot's team has now managed to get back into the Champions League spots after a bit of a shaky start, and I do think Slot maybe would have been warranting question marks over his position. I think, though, in this game, I'm going to go a 2-2 draw. 2 decent sides coming into this, and I can't quite pick a winner. Right, on to the FA Cup games. We love the FA Cup on this channel. It is actually my favourite competition in the entirety of the world. Absolutely amazing games. We've got MK Dons versus Oxford United kicking us off. I think it's a League 2 versus a Championship, but I don't actually think there's that much difference. And I think this could well be a all League 1 fixture next season. I'm going to go a 1-1 draw, but I have to say that Oxford United are going to win it in either extra time or on penalties. They can't, although this wouldn't be surprising for me if this is one of the upsets of the competition. Port Vale versus Fleetwood Town, bottom of League One, Port Vale. Although did a fantastic job against Blackpool, if you saw that result, incredible. Up against a Fleetwood side which are trying to get into the playoffs if League Two and return to League One. I think an end-to-end exciting 3-3 draw with Port Vale winning in either extra time or on penalties in this one. Preston North End versus Wigan Athletic, first two sides to have actually won the competition. Preston quite a while ago now, admittedly, but Wigan, who can forget that time in about 2014 where they won it. But yeah, I think Preston are long overdue a good cup run. 2-1 to Preston North End. They're in playoffs or maybe just outside, I can't remember, of the championship at the moment. Decent enough side. I think Wigan haven't got much at the moment. Wrexham versus Nottingham Forest. Who would I rather lose? This one, you've got Hollywood SC, who are right scumbags, but then you've also got the Red Dogs, who are my sworn enemy. I can't choose. And it's going to go 3-3 draw and Nottingham Forest to win in either extra time or on penalties. There you go. It's a diplomatic answer. Cheltenham Town versus Leicester City. Well, Cheltenham are obviously coming in this expecting an upset. It's going to be very difficult, though. Let's be realistic in this one. Even though we're at Wharton Road, they're struggling in League Two. Leicester, you keep on thinking, are they going to go on some run and get into the playoffs of the Championship? Surely they must, but at the moment they're not looking so convincing. So maybe a morale-boosting performance will be needed from lads here. 4-0 to the Foxes in this one. Everton versus Sunderland, an all-Premier League occasion. I think Sunderland will probably be more focused on the league because there's an outside chance that they could get Europe by just performing well in the league. And I think Everton might win this one 3-0 to the Scousers over the Mackhams. Macclesfield versus Crystal Palace. I'm worried if this game's going to go ahead. And as I already said, I wouldn't mind actually doing a live watch along for this one if I need to see what I'm doing on that day. I've already got in line to make one video pre-recorded because I'm going to get some guests on the channel. But there's also a couple of games which you can also do live watch alongs to. Macclesfield, Palace, and Spurs versus Villa. With two which I earmarked. Macclesfield versus Palace. Waffling is the holders, though, of the FA Cup, and they could potentially come to an upset up against a side in the National League North, 6 tiers below them. Crystal Palace are going to win this, but after a 0-0 draw, I think it's going to be on either extra time or on penalties. I think Macclesfield will make it really tough for them. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Shrewsbury Town. Charging a tenner to enter this game, by the way, which is absolute scam. I think it's 50-50 on gate receipts. I think Shrewsbury might be feeling a bit shortchanged, maybe. I've been to non-league games, which are more expensive than this game. Albeit, it is a relatively local rivalry of sorts, although they don't frequently play each other. There's not that much difference just down the M5. Or the A5, I can never remember which one it is. I think the Premier League see a side displayed a bit of quality in my last game and need to continue that confidence boosting. I'm going 3-2 to Wolves. I think it'll be an entertaining game, and Shrewsbury will definitely believe they can win it. Boreham Wood versus Burton Albion. Third game in a row that Burton are going to be playing a non-league side. Boreham Wood at the moment are looking like they were at one point at the top of the National League and still up and amongst it. Really strong team. Burton are in danger of being relegated to League Two. Could this be an all League Two occasion next season? Who knows? But I'm going to go a 0-0 draw and Burton Albion to win in extra time or on penalties. It's really not what they want, really. Burton is an FA Cup run because Having a right injury crisis at the moment. It seems every game they're getting someone injured. Burnley versus Millwall. Not much difference between these two teams. Burnley in the relegation zone in the Premier League, Millwall in the playoffs of the Championship, but that is actually a world apart. I think Burnley do win this one quite comfortably, 3-1. Doncaster Rovers versus Southampton. Southampton haven't done much this season, and with Doncaster, I'm pretty confident going to be relegated to League Two. They need something to put a smile on the faces of the South Yorkshire fans. And why ever not? We'll go Doncaster Rovers to win this one 1-0. One of the upsets of the round. Fulham versus Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough have their eyes on making this a Premier League occasion next season. And so they'll be right up to showing that they can compete. I think it will be a 1-1 draw. I think it will be quite a good game, actually. Both teams feeling fairly strong teams. But I think Fulham do win this in either extra time or on penalties. Ipswich Town versus Blackpool. Ipswich Town, if we recall, did an incredible job in the 1980s. I don't know if they won that. They certainly have won it in the past. And Blackpool won the Stanley Matthews final back in the 1950s. So both of these two teams do actually have pedigree in this competition. But you look at Blackpool at the moment, they're not looking as if they could cause an upset, if I'm being brutally honest. I think Ipswich, they're on a great run of form. 2-0 to the Tractor Boys at home at Portman Road. Manchester City versus Exeter City. A very interesting one indeed at the Etihad. I mean, Man City are obviously going to be playing the youngsters, I feel, in this one. And as a result, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends 0-0, but it goes to extra time and into penalties, and that Man City win it. Overall, that quality will just shine through in the end as legs begin to tire. Newcastle United versus AFC Bournemouth. Eddie Howe is going to be facing his former club, and we know what that means. It means that Bournemouth will raise their game and expectations. I think Newcastle will be more focused on trying to progress through this EFL Cup game that they got in the semi-finals in midweek against Manchester City, and so maybe wouldn't actually mind not fielding a full-strength team in this game in the Cup, which might mean that Bournemouth win this one. 4-1, I'm going to go to Bournemouth in this one. Maybe a bit disappointing for the Geordies. Salford City versus Swindon Town. Second versus, I believe, fourth in League Two. Yep. And two very exciting teams to watch. Can Swindon get through and draw a Premier League team? Oh, sorry about that. Swindon at one point did play in the Premier League a while ago now, right in the early days of the competition, of a rebranding of the Division 1 to the Premier League. But I think the class of 92 do surprise us and show their class again. 3-2 to Salford. They'll be dreaming of a tie at home to Man United. Sheffield Wednesday versus Brentford. Sheffield Wednesday need a cup run just to bring some money into the club, but I'm going to say they've not looked great this season, and I think Brentford do, unfortunately, win this 2-1 to Brentford. Stoke City versus Coventry City. Mark Robins up against his former club in Coventry. I've heard a lot of people around Coventry saying that they don't want to win this game. They would desperately just play the plumber, play the kitchen assistant, play, the kit man. Just play anybody apart from actual players because they're in a right old injury crisis and have not got a lot of squad depth at the moment. However, I do think Coventry actually win this, surprisingly, because I think Frank Lampard does like this competition. He won it with Chelsea, and he certainly did all right when he was at Derby with it. 1-0 to Coventry is what I'm going to go with. Maybe not what the fans want to hear, though. Bristol City versus Watford. An all-championship occasion, both of these two sides. trying to get to the playoffs and championship this season. It's probably going to be one of the more boring games. A routine 2-1 win for Bristol City at home at Ashton Gate. Cambridge United versus Birmingham City. Will be nothing more than Birmingham would like better than a FA Cup run, I'm sure. It's one of them ones that suddenly people will start talking about their relations to Tom Brady and the likes of that, and Tom Wagner will surely be smiling. But you've got to get past Cambridge United, who are in League Two. It's certainly got a upset marked on it, and I'm going to go 2-1 though to Birmingham City. Getting the job done. Won't be pretty though. Grimsby Town versus Weston-super-Mare. Grimsby Town had their great EFL Cup exploits early on in the season, getting Manchester United, of all teams, dumped out of the competition. They are now going to be trying to avoid the giant killing themselves as Tier 6 National League Southside Weston-super-Mare come to town. Two coastal towns, but with very different pasts and presents. I do think Grimsby win this one 3-1. They take it seriously, but it would certainly be a huge upset if Weston-super-Mare managed to get through to the next round, wouldn't it? Tottenham Hotspur versus Aston Villa as another one that I potentially earmarked for a live watch along. Aston Villa travelling to Spurs. I think Aston Villa could actually potentially win it this season. I think that might be my bold prediction. I'm going to go 2-1 to Aston Villa. Charlton Athletic versus Chelsea in an all-London affair. Chelsea will certainly be looking to gain some silverware this season. It's been quite a while in a bit of a dearth of having domestic honours, obviously winning Conference League and World Cup last season, but domestically haven't done a lot recently, and I think maybe getting back to winning the FA Cup could be an important one. But I think in this one they'll rest a few players, play their kids against the Championship side. 1-0 to Chelsea. Let's Rossini know what he's got in his squad. Then we got some League One games, I believe. It's always hard to tell when these switch to League One only games, because there is a few going on, but I think, yeah. The Luton Town versus Stevenage. Everyone's eyes are on the FA Cup this game week, and I don't think many people will be that bothered about what is going to actually be quite a good League One game, in my opinion. Stevenage, well, they've actually been not on a great run of form themselves over the past few weeks. I think it's fair to say they've not won in the last 4 games now to have dropped out of the playoffs. I think they will get back in, but I look at Luton and I think maybe this is their time to pounce and leapfrog them. 7-1 to Luton Town. It's big. It's a risky prediction, but if it happens, absolute scenes at Kenilworth Road. Stockport County versus Huddersfield Town, 4th versus 6th at the moment. Huddersfield on the better run of form, though, of the two teams, but over the span of the season, these two teams have been very equal indeed. I wouldn't be surprised if Huddersfield finish maybe even in the top 3 if they continue in the vein of form that they're in. Really strong performance by the Terriers, but I think Stockport maybe come up with an upset in this one. They're at home as well, which does help. 2-1 to Stockport County, putting an end to the unbeaten run that Huddersfield are currently on. On to the next one. We got Bradford City versus Rotherham United in a Yorkshire derby. Bradford have had a couple of hit and miss results. They've been broadly great this season, though, and credit must be given to them to have still been in the top 3 so far. Rotherham in the relegation zone. Matt Hamshaw really should be sacked. I'm going to be brutally honest. The fact that he is not just says a lot at the moment. But maybe they rise themselves to the occasion in this Yorkshire derby. 1-0 to Rotherham United. Anything can happen, really, when you get to the lower reaches of the game. It really is anybody's game at the moment. And you wouldn't be surprised if Rotherham stay up. I think they might be relegated, considering how bad they are at the moment. But you never know. Leyton Orient versus Cardiff City. Leyton just above a relegation zone. 3 losses in a row. They'll be hoping to not make it 4 as they travel to top of the league Cardiff. Cardiff, I think, might come to this game thinking, oh, it's going to be a bit of an easy one. And therefore, I think Leyton Orient do surprise Cardiff and win 2-1. Peterborough United versus Bolton Wanderers. Bolton in 5th place, although I've not always been convinced of them myself. There's more other teams around them that have been dropped off, but I think they do merit to be in the playoffs based on purely history fact as well. But you look at Peterborough, really gone up the leagues of the league have a current position. They did lose their last one, but before that one, a really solid run of form. Certainly clicked together of late, and maybe a 1-1 draw at London Road is a fair result. League 2, we've got Accrington Stanley versus Barnet. Accrington Stanley, very, very mid-table, it must be said. Won 3 in a row, though, so a decent run of games for the Lancashire side in that 14th place position. Up against Barnet, who are also unbeaten in 3. 2 points is all that separates these two teams, but I think Barnet has been generally more consistent this season. But at home at the One Stadium, we're going to Accrington Stanley to win. Add another one to their collection, 1-0. Chesterfield versus Colchester United. Chesterfield just about in the playoffs by a singular point, although I do fear they're going to drop out at this point in proceedings. And Colchester, I would actually argue, are the better team, even though there's 4 points separating the two. I think we get a draw in this one. 2 very even teams. 1-1 draw. Crewe Alexandra versus Harrogate Town. Crewe in 10th. I don't think they will reach the playoffs, but I think, as ever, you'd expect a challenge from the Cheshire side. As they are taking on at bottom of the league, Harrogate, losing 4 in a row. They've been really poor this season, I think, Harrogate. Definitely deserving to be relegated, I would say. And I'm going to go for another win for Crewe against, another loss rather, Harrogate, and another win for Crewe. It does equal out. 1-0 to Crewe Alexandra in this one. Oldham Athletic versus Notts County. Notts County have been a bit disappointing in the last 4 games, you would say. Seeing them drop out of the playoffs, they definitely are going to end in them, I would say. It's all very, very close in that sort of position at the moment. But yeah, I think they can finish in the top 5, quite possibly. And I would suggest, though, up against an Oldham side, we're looking quite decent. 5 games unbeaten at the moment for Oldham. It is certainly not the most surprising. Well, it's a bit, I don't know. There's a Mickey Mellon side. He does know the lead, doesn't he? 2-2 draw is what I'm going to go with. I'm waffled a bit too much in this. But yeah, I think certainly see Oldham rising a couple of places in the final table. That's a decent season, I think, from Oldham standards. Tranmere Rovers versus Bromley. Bromley are top of the league, 10 out of 10 every single week, and I certainly think we'll get automatic promotion. But you know what? It's going to be one of them ones that they're up against Tranmere Rovers, and everybody expects Bromley now to win. That's the expectations, and I think Tranmere could potentially cause an upset. It is at Princeton Park, and I think Tranmere Rovers win this one by 2-1. Bit of a shocker in that one. Sutton United versus York City. We have got a couple of a smattering, really, of National League games. Only 4 at the moment. Actually, I've completely missed one off my list. Just missed off Aldershot Town versus Solihull Moors. I do apologise about that. You get to see me in work thinking off the top of my head, because normally I plan these beforehand. I don't know why I missed this one out this time round. Absolutely No idea why. It's because it was postponed from last week. I didn't realise they were going to have such a quick turnaround. I'm going to go. Okay, we'll do it on the bounce. Aldershot, they're currently in really good form. 4 games unbeaten in the league, with 3 wins to their name. They are up against a Solihull Moors team. They're also in a decent run of form. But you know what? We're going to go with an Aldershot win here. 3-1 to Aldershot Town in this game. I wouldn't think it'd be too surprising. Now on to the ones that I've actually got written down. Sutton United versus York City. Sutton are in the relegation zone, but they did have a good run of form before that. And if they can rekindle any of that form, I think they will stay up this season. And I'm pretty certain they're going to leapfrog a fair few teams. I can see them finishing around about that 17th mark even. It's all very close down at the bottom at the moment. It's a difficult game, York. They are 3 points off the automatic spot, the title, but got 2 games in hand over Carlisle to do that. They're on a very good run of form. They're actually the most informed team in the division at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to stumble in this one. I'm going to go with 2-2 draw at Gander Green Lane, which could be a right upset and for a bit of a span in the walk in York season. A Woking versus Hartlepool United, 9th versus 12th in this one. Yeah, it's going to be a fairly interesting game, this one. Hartlepool are the currently higher ranked of the 2 teams. I don't think although there's 5 points, I don't actually think there's too much difference. We'll go with a home advantage win. Woking to win 3-2. Braintree Town versus Boston United, a relegation 6-pointer, 18th versus 19th, but both of these 2 teams are in danger of being relegated. And at the moment, I would say Braintree, I think, may be the team to succumb to the relegation. I think Boston win this one accordingly, therefore, even though they haven't won it in the last 4. 1-0 to Boston United. Just a gut feeling. We've got some FA Trophy games to predict as well. We've got Bath City versus Southend United. And we're going to start with an upset. Southend are determined to get promoted this season, to get into the playoffs. Bath, well, they've not really got much to play for, if I'm being brutally honest. They're 19th. Okay, they've got maybe survival hopes, but this will just boost their confidence quite a bit, I think. And they're going to win 3-1. There's a surprise from the books of it. None of you expected me to say that. Chatham Town versus Carlisle United. This will be Chatham's biggest challenge to date. They certainly have been known for their exploits in both the cup and the trophy in recent seasons. I think they could definitely draw out a draw in this one, and Carlisle United to win on penalties. 0-0 draw. Eastleigh versus Southport. A National League side versus a National League North side. Southport are in trouble, I think that's fair to say, in the National League North. They have managed to get themselves out of relegation zone by 2 points. There is every danger, though, that they very much easily get sucked back into it. It's very, very close at the moment. And maybe this will come as a bit of relief. Eastleigh, they've got their mid-table. They're wanting an FA Trophy one. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw and Eastleigh to win this one on a penalty shootout. Ebbsfleet United versus Forest Green Rovers. National League South, Ebbsfleet versus Forest Green Rovers. Do Forest Green Rovers actually want a trophy run? That's a question. I will pose that to, if there is any Forest Green Rovers fans out there. Would you like a trophy run, or would you just be thinking it's just a fixture congestion and you would rather get the title? 0-0 draw. Therefore, I think Forest Green Rovers play a weaker side, and I think Ebbsfleet United knock them out on penalties. There you go. Would that be a good result for Forest Green Rovers, as it means it gets to free up some game time and focus on the league. I don't know. FC Halifax Town versus Anstey Nomads. If the weather is good enough, and we'll find out in a couple of hours, I should imagine. I'm hoping to see Anstey Nomads travel to Carlton Town in this midweek one. Really interesting thing I found out recently about Anstey Nomads is they've now got Martin Waghorn and David Nugent. David Nugent's a player coach. What a blast from the past for Derby fans that is, as a front two. They were certainly prolific back in around that. One pretty much overtook the other, didn't they? You got David Nugent in 2017-18, and then 2018-19, you got Waghorn coming in. I love both of them, and they're echoing a Nuge around the stadium. Oh, takes me right back. Anyway, in this one, you got Halifax, who have got pedigree in this competition. 0-0 draw. I think Anstey will draw out, but I think Halifax do show their quality in a penalty shootout, although it is a right lottery. Hereford versus AFC Fylde. I think Fylde will be focused on trying to close that gap and get the title. They are 2 points off it, and maybe they'll view the FA Trophy as a bit of a distraction. Hereford are in relegation zone at 1 point off safety, but they need to get a win. Something to kick and spur them on. And I think the Bull will ramp into action and win this one 2-1 at Edgar Street. Now, I bet you didn't expect that. Hornchurch versus ASC Telford United. A battle between the National League North and the National League South. ASC Telford banging mid-table in 14th. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish a few positions higher up come the end of the season. They're on a good, decent run of form themselves. You look at Hornchurch, they're in the top three. Been quite a successful season for the London side at the moment. 0-0 draw, and I'm going to go Hornchurch to edge it out on penalties. Could really go either way. Kidderminster Harriers versus Morecambe. Morecambe, I think, will view this as a bit of an opportunity. Kidderminster Harriers are really, really strong at the moment. They are impeccable. I cannot punch a hole in their performances of late. They've been 10 out of 10. All the superlatives to talk about them. They win game after game after game. And they're up against Morecambe, who are in the relegation zone, but they need something to kick them on. They've been written off by most fans for most of the season. And I think Morecambe actually win this one. 2-1 to Morecambe. They need something to put a smile on the fans' faces. A good trophy run would be surely one of the things that could do that. Leatherhead versus Horsham. Yeah, it's Surrey versus Sussex. Both of these two teams one is still in the Isthmian League and one was in the Isthmian League not long ago. Horsham, though, seems to be ploughing on ahead. But 0-0 draw and Horsham to win on penalties. But yeah, I don't think it will be a pretty game by any sense. I think Leatherhead will want to try and cause an upset. Marine versus Gloucester City. Marine, who spent a lot of their history in the Northern Premier League and only now in the National League North, versus Gloucester City, who have spent a lot of their history in that flipping between the National League North and South, are now in the Southern League. How things change. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw in this one. I don't think Marine are ever that good in these cups. But I do think Marine could maybe edge it out to win on penalties. Scunthorpe United versus Clitheroe. Clitheroe are looking to add another upset to their bow as they knocked out York in the previous round, which certainly impressed me. It's a Tier 8 side taking on and destroying a team at the top ends of non-league. I've got another chance to do that with Scunthorpe, but I think maybe Scunthorpe edge this on penalties. I'm going to go 0-0 draw, and I'm going to go Scunthorpe to win on penalties. Tamworth versus Rochdale. I think Rochdale might view this as a competition to win. There's not been a lot of winning at the moment around. Well, there has been a lot of winning in terms of things, but having a cup, I think Rochdale would absolutely be delighted in that. 2-1 to Rochdale against Tamworth. Why ever not? I think they're a team I could feasibly see winning this. Walton and Hersham versus Brackley Town. Brackley disappointingly knocked out of the FA Cup by Burton back in November, have a chance to go on a cup run in the trophy now. And they're going to have to evade the upset up against Surrey Bayside or Walton and Hersham. I'm going to go a 0-0 draw on Brackley to win on penalties. They love a good penalty shootout, don't they? Brackley or extra time stroke penalties, whatever you want to call it. They knocked out Notts County in the FA Cup through it. Wealdstone versus Dagenham and Redbridge. Dagenham and Redbridge will be certainly looking for an upset, but Wealdstone, they've not got really anything to play for and really need to get back to winning ways, having had quite a poor run of form of late. But they mid-table side in this cross-London affair where Dagenham and Redbridge are also quite mid-table, it would probably be fair to say, in 12th place. Which of the mid-table teams are going to win? It's got to be Wealdstone, doesn't it? 3-0 to the Stones. Yeovil Town versus Alvechurch. Alvechurch will come and make it difficult. Yeovil aren't in the greatest form at the moment. 0-0, but I do think Yeovil edge it out on a penalty shootout. On to some National League North games then. We got Curzon Ashton versus Bedford Town. Yeah, the National League North is a interesting competition. I do like their games. It's quite a decent standard of football, actually. Curzon Ashton 2 points outside the playoffs as we speak. Need to make up the goal difference, though, because that's their real weakness at the moment. And as a result, I can't really see them actually getting it in the end. Bedford, well, they're not going to be relegated, but they're not being great this season. I think they'll maybe rise up to 17th, but would a 17th be a good first season for Bedford? I don't think it's too bad, is it? 2-2 draw, in my opinion, at the Nash. Is it at the Nash? Can't remember. Or whether they nickname it Nash. Can't remember. Darlington versus Radcliffe. We talked about Radcliffe's good performance that they're going to do in the last game. This is a difficult one, though. Darlington are in the playoffs, as are Radcliffe, and this is going to certainly be a tougher game than I think a lot of people think. I think maybe home advantage in this one. Darlington to win by 2-1 is what I'm going to edge out. I do think Darlington reach the playoffs come at the end of the season, probably lifted up to 6th. On to Kings Lynn Town versus Alfreton Town. Alfreton are so close now to getting over that dotted line. It's just goal difference away, and that's because they've been horrendously defensive-wise and also have scored the second lowest amount of goals this season. It is a right old disappointing season, I think, for the Reds by all marks, whenever you see it. But I think maybe they get a point. Kings Lynn haven't been great. They've had 3 draws in the last 5 and no wins in that spell as well. Alfreton won their last one, although it was not that unexpected. It was against Leamington after all. I'm going to go with a 0-0 draw in this one. It just adds a bit of form, though, to Alfreton. Leamington versus Spennymoor. Leamington have departed with their manager, who was one of the longest-serving managers. 3rd longest-serving manager in the top 6 tiers. He took over the club in 2009, led them 3 times promotion from the Southern League. Absolute legend is Paul. I can't remember what his surname is. Paul Holrake. I'm just going to quickly Google that. I can't remember now. Leamington. Paul Holleran. I know it was a Paul. But yes, they are now in the process of appointing a new manager. And they are hosting Spennymoor Town, but maybe that will provide a bit of a bounce. Spennymoor drifting away now, I would say, from that playoffs. I'm going to go with a 3-1 win for Leamington, which seems unlikely, but you never know. Oxford City versus Buxton. It's a toss-up between Buxton, Chorley, and Telford, which sides gets into that playoff position that Scarborough I don't think will get. Which seems pretty mad, but there's actually only 5 points between Scarborough and Telford. Telford on a decent enough run of form. But Buxton, I really want to get to this playoff position. I really do. It'll put some joy back on my face supporting Derbyshire teams. And, Oxford City are in a relegation zone. I still think they do stay up this season, if I'm being brutally honest. I can't see them being relegated. I'm going to vote maybe a dent to their confidence and their goal difference. 7-0 to Buxton. An absolute masterclass for the Bucks and John McGrath's side. Scarborough Athletic versus Chester. Scarborough, I think, are slipping away. They're in 6th place and lucky to be so for me. And they're up against a Chester side. But, the hit and miss. You don't know quite which Chester side is gonna arrive on the day. But I do think Chester win this one 4-2. Worksop Town versus Merthyr Town. Merthyr are so much better than Worksop. Worksop have managed to get a decent run of form to get themselves clear that relegation danger for now. I'm still not convinced that they're going to. I think they'll maybe just stay up, maybe 20th. Merthyr, though, they're different gravy at the moment. They're 1 loss in the last 6 games, 4 wins in that spell. Certainly looking a solid team, the Welsh outfit. 2-0 to Merthyr Town, therefore, is what I'm suspecting is going to happen. Chesham United versus AFC Totton in the National League South. Chesham in 13th, very mid-table. Totton in 11th. They've sort of lost their mojo, and I think they're just going to start going down and down and down. Maybe even down to like 16th, if I'm going to be honest. I think Chesham, therefore, win this one 2-0. And they leapfrog the Stags. Chippenham Town versus Slough Town. Slough won the last 3 in a row. And let's face it, even though Chippenham are unbeaten in 3, it would have to be an absolute miracle at this point for them to stay up. I think they're finishing bottom of the league, if I'm going to be honest. Slough, therefore, I'm going to have to win this one. And the Rebels to win by 3-0. Dover Athletic versus Hemel Hempstead Town. Dover mid-table in 15th, 3 losses in a row, though, versus Hemel Hempstead, who are in 6th. You would suspect Hemel Hempstead win, but that football is not like that, and I think maybe it would crabble a draw. A 2-2 draw is what I'm going to go in this one. Enfield Town versus Tonbridge Angels. Tonbridge Angels have been struggling a bit lately. They're in 17th. They will definitely stay up. Whether they stabilise beyond this sort of 17th, 16th sort of place, I don't know. But they're up against Enfield, have lost 3 in a row, back in that firmly in that relegation mix, and I can't see them staying up, if I'm being brutally honest. 3-1, therefore, to Tonbridge Angels is what I'm suspecting. Farnborough versus Chelmsford City. No win in the last 4 for Farnborough, as they look like they're going to be back in that relegation zone, as Hampton and Richmond Borough are beginning to pick up a few wins. Chelmsford, they're so hit and miss this season, mid-table. Bit unsuspected for me. I didn't suspect them to be in that sort of mid-table pack, maybe. I think we've grown accustomed to them being challenging for the playoffs of late. I think this will be an end-to-end game, therefore. They've only had 2 wins in the last 6, Chelmsford. 4-3 to Chelmsford City. Salisbury versus Worthing. Salisbury, I think, are not completely clear relegation woes. I think they maybe end the season, maybe it goes to the last day of the season job again, and they just about stay up. But we're looking at Worthing, the best team in the league at the moment, the top of the league, the most informed team in the league. By far, for me, are going to be the team to win the league. They're incredible. They absolutely are, and they have been for a number of seasons now. So 2-0 to Worthing for me in this one. It's just going to be another win for them. Torquay United versus Hampton and Richmond Borough. I keep on wanting Torquay to do well. It's just a former Football League team to be in the National League South, as disappointing as it is. I just have a feeling that they're going to be in like second place in this season. There's 5 points off difference. And we need to start adding some more points desperately. But Hampton Richmond Borough, I don't think are going to follow that script and narrative at all and cause an upset and win this one 1-0. On to the other FA Cup games. Got Derby County versus Leeds United. It takes you right back to Don Revie versus Brian Clough, doesn't it? It really, really does. And I'm going to go with I don't think Derby haven't won at home to Leeds since like 2016. So I'm going 1-0 to Leeds United, but I really hope I'm wrong. Portsmouth versus Arsenal. Arsenal are going to romp Portsmouth. I don't care that they won it, in 2008, was it? But yeah, I think Arsenal win this one 4-1. They're certainly going to be wanting to try and get the double for me. Hull City versus Blackburn Rovers. Let's be honest, who is tuning in to watching Hull City versus Blackburn Rovers in the Cup? Certainly not me. It sounds a right bore. But for some reason, they put it on the Sunday. Yeah, Blackburn, I think, come away with a win in this one. 3-0. They're certainly a historic club, Blackburn. They were the first team, I believe, to win 5 FA Cups, and I believe the only team to win 5 FA Cups in a row. Certainly an interesting one. Norwich City versus Walsall. Norwich, I think Walsall can maybe cause an upset. They're doing quite well this season. Norwich in relegation zone, Walsall in the top 3. Going to go a bustling 0-0 draw, but I have to say Norwich do show that championship quality and win in extra time or on penalties. Sheffield United versus Mansfield Town. Not a heck of a lot away between these two teams, actually. Probably about 30 minutes or so. And at Bramall Lane, I'm going to have to say Sheffield United win this one 2-1. I think Mansfield will try and demonstrate it, but not quite. Swansea City versus West Bromwich Albion, another all-championship, pretty boring game. 1-0 to Swansea we'll go with, but yeah, can really go either way. West Ham United versus Queen's Park Rangers. Queen's Park Rangers were involved, I don't know if they won it, but they were involved in a final in the 1970s. And West Ham, of course, in the 1960s with a team full of people with a surname of B. The likes of Billy Bonds, who's unfortunately no longer with us. Yes, they had such a team. Bobby Charlton, all sorts, in that 1960s time. 2-0 to West Ham United in this one. Maybe get a FA Cup again. It's been a long time overdue. Manchester United versus Brighton Hove Albion. As I was saying earlier, Man United, I think, need to win something maybe this season. And up against Brighton, I can feasibly see that happening 4-2 to Man United. Liverpool versus Barnsley. That takes us back, doesn't it? Who remembers this FA Cup game? It was 2007 when this happened. It was an absolute while ago. And I think we could see an exact replica. I think Barnsley win 2-1 at Anfield against Liverpool to be the ultimate upset of this FA Cup. I do. I really do. I think, that could be quite something. AFC Wimbledon versus West Ham United's under-21s is also on a Monday night for some reason in the EFL Trophy. Yeah, not the glamour tie that we just talked about, is it? But a 1-1 draw in this one, and I'm going to go with West Ham to win on penalties. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe if you're new owner. Good afternoon. Hi, Ho Chef Wednesday. Favourite Quality Street chocolate. You can see Quality Street there, can't you? To be honest, Quality Street is probably my least favourite of the 3 boxes. But it's 4 boxes, isn't it? So you get Roses, Quality Street, Celebrations, and Heroes, and I'll probably put Celebrations on the top. But in terms of actual Quality Street, just looking at some of the flavours here, I'd actually say probably either the purple one or the green triangle for me. What about you? Leave that in the comment section down below. But yeah, we've got some live watch alongs, hopefully, fingers crossed, on the Saturday. We've hopefully going to be able to get to a game tonight. Don't know how much chanting there'll be on that. It's a cold midweeker. And I'll also be pre-recording a video about the games I've been to in 2025, hopefully in time for a release at some point next week. But if you're not Fudge and Green Triangle or Ace, fair enough, Iron Man trains. Cheers, Nathaniel. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye for now.